and tired of it. I wanted to end. I made a vital mistake. And this is my fault because I don't know how to spell. It came down to not wanting to waste sticker paper, and I still managed to waste it. It's like, how many episodes will this take? Being a graphic design student means you're constantly being put to the test, pushing your limitations, problem solving on the fly, and just hoping that whatever you envision doesn't completely burst into flames and make you want to quit. Or that's at least how I felt about this project. I had never done packaging design before, and since there's always a first for everything, I thought it would be fun to bring you along and kind of show you the creative process on how I made this beauty. But before I dive into how I actually did it, we gotta start from the beginning. So here's the assignment. Create a packaging design for a product. What product are we working with? I'll let you take a guess. That's right, soap. We are designing packaging for our very own brand of soap. Now, you might be wondering, okay, so what's the name of your soap? Well, I'll tell you. But first, we gotta go over the list of requirements in order to get an A. First one, come up with a unique brand and write a creative brief. 2, the packaging had to include 3 different scents, brand name, scent names, soap weight, and all the usual stuff you normally see on a box. We have to design the dye lines and illustration and basically bring the entire product to life. Do y'all remember the nostalgia and mood rings growing up? They were supposed to predict our moods throughout the day. Mine always said I was depressed, and I wonder why. I don't know if they actually worked or they were another way to just trick kids into giving their money away. Regardless, I loved mood rings. They were always fun to have as a kid, and I checked what mood my friends were in all day. That's why I decided to base my soap brand off of. I'm calling it Hue Bar. Get it? Hue as in like color and bar as in soap bar. I know, we're all creative. I was originally going to call it Moopy because I was trying to combine mood and soapy, but after getting some helpful criticism from classmates and my professor, yeah, it sounded way too close to moody, and that kind of left a weird taste. So I switched it to Hue Bar, and honestly, I think it fits way better. I know y'all came here for the design process and not to just see this beautiful face on your screen, so let's get into the creative journey of how I made my very first packaging design, Hue Bar. Before starting any project, I always make a mood board for inspiration. When I think of mood rings, I immediately think of the 90s and early 2000s. Now, don't get it twisted. Mood rings were actually invented in 1975 by Joshua Reynolds. They were a huge fashion fad in the 70s, marketed as an accessory for the me decades, a time when people were learning to explore their feelings. But while they kind of disappeared for a while, they made a comeback in the 90s and 2000s, which is where I discovered them, because obviously I wasn't born in the 70s. I wanted to bring that nostalgic feeling into my soap product, so I went for a fun, bright colors with a vintage modern feel. Big, bold, funky text that you can't go wrong with, and I wanted to add in some playful illustrations. The goal was to target Gen Z and millennial audiences, since that nostalgic era has been making a comeback on social media, and honestly, still is. I'm a visual person when it comes to design, and I knew that making the dye line for the templates right away was not going to be an easy process and would probably fry my brain more than it needed to be. I used this box that my mic came in as a reference for how I wanted my box to function. The issue is, the box was way too big, and I had to use the little math I knew to turn this into the size I actually needed for my little soap guide to fit in. This wasn't the girl math I signed up for. After almost an hour of measuring and asking the internet how to read measurements on a ruler, I finally had an idea of how big I wanted my soap box to be. And it was time to create the mock-up. I used an old shoebox, a toy box, and some clear tape to throw everything together. The bottom of the box was 4 1/4 inches wide and 4 1/4 inches long. The top was slightly different, 4 inches wide still 4¼ inches long, and the whole box was 1¼ inches deep. When I was measuring, I knew I wanted the soap to be around 1 inch thick and about 4 inches in diameter. Here's a tip when creating mock-ups out of cardboard. Right where the bottom is and how the text should be facing when it's actually functioning. It helps a lot when laying out the design in Illustrator so you don't make mistakes during printing. Because there is nothing worse than printing your design and then realizing something is upside down because you forgot to flip it. Creating the mock-up was actually fun at first. It felt like I was doing arts and crafts. My brain kind of shut off and I got to watch some YouTube in the background while I worked. With every piece I measured and cut out, I folded the box to see if it worked, checked my drawing, checked it off, moved on to the next piece, and I actually felt like I was making progress. It felt easy. Until I hit this part of the box. The top of the box ended up being too short, easy fix. I just matched it to the bottom and it worked. But this little part where the inner flip folds in, yeah, I couldn't get the box to close right. It was either too thick where it wouldn't close snug, or too small where there wasn't enough room for the flap to tuck in. I kept taking cardboard away, adding more, taking some off again, adding it back, until I finally just gave up. Taped the two pieces together and made the tape the fold. That was the moment I realized this is taking way longer than it should. I spent 5 hours trying to get this box to function correctly. But to be fair, I was remeasuring every single little part from another box, having no idea what I was doing, and pretty much just winging it. But after all that trial and error, we finally had a functioning cardboard mock-up of my soapbox, and this became my new reference. I won't lie, this was probably the biggest headache of the whole project. I probably could have just gone straight into the dye lines and tested it digitally, but I'm really glad that I actually did the physical version. It helped me visualize the product and made the rest of the design process way faster and easier. Now for the fun part, putting the final design together before test prints. I found this color palette on Pinterest that gave me the exact vibe I was going for. The fonts I chose were 8 Heavy and Acumen VF in wide bold. They felt bold, quirky, and had that early 2000s sass without being too loud. The first thing I did was make a fun pattern of illustrations that would go all over the boxes, laid out across all 4 templates. By the way, I'm doing 4 cents instead of 3 because I like to be a little extra sometimes. Next, I laid out the primary colors of each box with a smaller shape as an indicator. That's where I'm going to cut the hole that allows the box to hold itself together when opening and closing. I went ahead, copied and pasted the other 3 boxes, switched out the colors to match their coordinating scents, and renamed to the correct ones. Added the cute little barcodes. I went with colors that contrast in a fun-loving way, something that would grab your attention if you saw these on a shelf while shopping. I wanted the packaging to communicate the feeling of playfulness and nostalgia that came with mood rings, that what mood am I today vibe. If you look back at my mood board, there was this photo of a juice bottle that created an illustration when they were stacked. As soon as I saw that, I knew I had to do something similar with my packaging. So I designed both a boy and a girl. They're washing their hair, soap and bubbles are dripping down. It was the perfect illustration. I stacked them in a way that made sense, then cut out the sides that weren't needed in the final print to make it easier when placing them on the templates. Tell me, these aren't cute. When I was deciding on how I wanted to design this packaging, I knew I didn't want it to be just a random soap box. I wanted it to be something fun on its own, not just as a product, but as a little piece of art you can display in your home. Designing it this way gives the box's personality, and honestly, this is probably one of my favorite assignments I've done my entire college career. Remember that hack I mentioned earlier? Writing down the text on how it should face when functioning? Yeah, that actually helped me out a lot when laying out the illustrations on the sides. It made sure everything fit where they were supposed to. I did have to go in and fix the way I laid out the side illustrations. I had to go and expand them because when I shrunk them down, the strokes were just way too thick. You don't see it here, but I did fix it and it does look a lot better. When you're doing any design project, Test prints are so important before committing to the final. I promise, test prints will save you a ton of headaches later. So first thing I did when I got to campus was print mini versions of the boxes just to see if cutting and folding them would help confirm whether my measurements were actually right. I don't know what it is, but I finally understand why people love miniature things. Seeing my boxes this tiny, was too cute. I couldn't stop smiling. Once I saw the minis work, I followed the same steps for the full-size version. Printed, cut, and folded them at the actual box dimensions. That's when I started realizing just how long this part of the process was gonna be. I was using a ruler and cutting every line with an X-Acto knife, trying to keep them as straight as possible. And just from doing these test prints, I could already feel the neck pain from staring down so long. I need a neck massage after this whole project. But honestly, even seeing them as test prints felt so good. Watching my designs slowly come to life gave me a little boost. Like, okay, maybe this project isn't gonna break me after all. I was just a few steps away from finishing this project on time. Actually, maybe even earlier than I thought. Matt showed me how to lay the sticker paper down the right way so I wouldn't get any bubbles or mess it up. We used a long piece of tape in the center, unwrapped the sticker from there, stuck it down little by little, then did the same thing on the other side. Wow, look at that. I did the same thing with the other 3 designs, and finally, the most satisfying part, cutting it out. I won't lie, using the X-Acto knife to cut these out, kind of therapeutic if I have to say. Everything was going so smoothly. I was right there, almost done. All that was left was folding it. And just when I was about to fold it, this happened. It didn't close properly. I made the mistake thinking science board was the perfect material to do this project. Boy, was I wrong. It was way too thick. It couldn't fold properly. It looked bulky and bulgy. I was upset, not gonna lie. I had just wasted all this sticker paper and time lining everything up perfectly just for it not to work. It stinks. But you know what would have made it worse? Soaking in that mistake and not moving forward. This is part of being a designer. We're gonna have these ups and downs. We're never going to become a better designer unless we mess up and learn from them. So what's the solution? Find a better material. Enters chipboard. Chipboard is an engineered wood product made from wood chips, shavings, or sawdust that's compressed and bonded together. It's actually used a lot by architectural students and apparently is great for packaging design. Okay, I know this project has been an entire roller coaster. Let's take a quick break from that bump in the road and sculpt our little smiley fella. I used Crayola air dry clay for this, and honestly, it was really fun to play with. I've always wanted to try making cute things out of clay because I see it all the time on TikTok, but I'm like, damn, I can't get into another hobby or spend more money. But this material is actually super affordable if you want to try something new without going broke. The soap itself was easy to sculpt. All I did was roll it into a big ball, pat it down to about 1 inch thick, and shape it into a smiley face. Once I got the general form, I let it dry for a bit, still damp, but not so wet that it would mess up if I touched it. Then I took a toothpick and lightly drew out the smiley face. I wanted the design to be protruding, so the negative space would be indented into the soap. After that, I went in with a sculpting tool and carefully scraped away the extra material until I got the shape I wanted. It took a little time, but I was really happy with how it came out. I even added my initials and the date on the back, then let it dry overnight. The next day, I painted it green to match the color of the box, the one on the bottom since I only needed 1 soap. I did forget to seal it with Mod Podge when the paint dried, and yeah, some of the paint chipped off later. So I definitely recommend sealing it if you try this. But other than that, here's our cute little smiley face fella. What should I name him? Now that I've sat back and reevaluated my cardboard incident, let's try this again. Same process. Use the big printer, cut out the stickers, lay them out, and yeah, hit another bump in the road. I messed up laying down one of the stickers. Way too many bubbles. It just didn't look good. Wasted more sticker paper. I felt so bad, but I fixed it. I reprinted it, cut the design into squares, and used the tape pack that Matt taught me. Then it finally started going smoothly again. I got everything laid out, and then I made a vital mistake, and this is my fault because I don't know how to spell, and I spelled lavender wrong. So I'm sorry, Matt. I have to reprint.
It happens. What do you mean you're sorry?
It was a small mistake, thank God, and luckily it was just that one. Finally, everything was laid out. We were watching anime, it was the end of the day, time to go home. The last thing I had to do was cut around the box template and apply the same sticker vinyl on the inside so it's there when you open the box. It was finally spring break. I finally had time to work on this project. Psych! I waited until the last day to finish. Cutting all these boxes out with the X-Acto knife was giving me early stage carpal tunnel and neck cramps. Shout out to Pastelena for getting a standing desk because it kind of saved my back. This was the final boss. Scoring, folding, trimming the inside sticker, cutting out the notch, all of it. But everything started looking so good, and at that point, I was like, oh yeah, we're almost there. And just like that, it's completed. This project took forever, but hands down was literally my favorite assignment to do this semester. It pushed me out of my comfort zone and forced me to learn a ton, not just about packaging design, but also about trial and error and what it means to pivot without panic. Looking back, here is what I would do differently. I probably would have started with an existing soapbox and used the measurements for that instead, just to save time. I found this site called Pandora, not sponsored by the way, but if you want to hit me up, hit me up. But it has a ton of die-line templates and 3D mock-up options for packaging. It's $30 a month, so it's not free. But if you're really into packaging design, it's actually worth the price. Next time, I would double check my materials. The thickness of that science board really threw me off. Chipboard ended up being the best. Triple check your spelling. I know it sounds obvious until you misspell lavender and have to reprint everything. For the inside pattern, I either would have scaled it to the die line template or printed it out in a big square. That way when I laid it out, I can just trim it perfectly and have no white gaps. And then lastly, I probably would have done 2 flaps instead of 1. The 1 flap made it bend weirdly and not close properly. So that's pretty much all I have of what I would do differently. Packaging design is a lot, but I'm really proud on how this turned out. And for my first time, I would say I crushed it. And if you made it this far, first of all, you're a real one. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, I've got other design projects, behind the scene processes, and storytelling content over on my channel. Feel free to check it out. Give this video some love and hit subscribe. It helps me out with the algorithm and let me know if this is the type of content you vibe with. And if you're a designer too, drop your favorite packaging project in the comments down below. Thank you for watching and I shall see y'all in the next one. Love y'all. Bye.